Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Proc Dude. My name is Michael Yomas. I am your host. It is a Friday afternoon, and we are here with a friend of mine that I met in Cyprus a few months back at a summit held by the Proc Camp DU, which was, again, their first one I think that was ever launched. It was a great time. You know, we had a few days of some great speakers, and we were both part of the career track, which I moderated, and we kind of talked, people talked about, again, going from senior PM to director and a change. And I talked about, my personal branding stuff. And I invited Viktoria up to talk on the panel afterwards, as one of my panelists ran off afterwards because he didn't realize he had to be actually in the session. But anywho, yeah, so I've been really excited to get her on this podcast. And without further ado, we are going to invite on Viktoria.
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
everyone. I'm Viktoria.
Thank you for joining. It really means a lot to me, and I think our viewership, as small as it probably is right now. But again, it's so great. It's so great to have you. Would you just mind giving a brief introduction about what you do, who you are, your background?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Michael, for having me. However small the viewership might be, we value each one of them greatly. So thank you for being here. I hope you stay till the end. I'm Viktoria Korzhova. I have a PhD in neuroscience, but I am currently a VP product. There's a long story how this happened. We can talk a bit about this if that's interesting. Currently, I work at a company called Product People. This is our logo, by the way, just trying to do some branding for Product People. It's onigiri, also a separate discussion we might have why. And we are a product management consultancy, which means we don't have our own product. We help other companies in digital space build great products. Our main business is interim product management support, which means if you don't have a product manager in a certain position for a period of time, we can fill this position. And some use cases are parental covers. So when a person goes for parental leave, it might be half a year, 9 months, sometimes longer, depends on the situation in the country. And then you might not want to hire a new person because then you have already a good team, but you still need support for engineers, and then we fill this position. Other cases is that product manager has left the company, hiring a new person might take also a few months. Again, we can cover. And we do this on different levels of product managers. So we start from junior product managers to mid-level to senior, but also do some product leadership positions. For example, I am doing interim head of product positions, interim product lead positions, VP product, the similar caliber.
That's awesome. And what's the ratio? What's the ratio? Do you see more of the more junior proc roles get eaten up, or is it, what's it like?
Yeah, I think naturally, because this is normally hierarchical structure, so you have more mid-level and junior PMs than product leaders. There's more requests that we get are from mid-level PMs. And I think also in the product leadership, companies more often are a bit reluctant to hire externals because they are worried that this requires a lot of specialized knowledge about the industry, about the company, being a good relationship with people. And oftentimes if someone in leadership goes, for example, on a short-term leave, they might try to fill this position with someone else. Either someone steps up, maybe who is aspiring to get to this level, or maybe a CEO takes part of the CPO role, or they find something like this. At the same time, when the leave is extended or they don't have extra resources, then they still are looking for some external support for these positions.
And the heads of positions, like, is that you find it more product people in general, that you find it more it's in larger organizations that kind of even offer that, or?
Well, first of all, of course, you need to have a head of product position, which only exists in little, not very small companies, let's say. I won't say a little bigger ones, not super small. Probably then the headcount is already above 5 PMs. Before 5 PMs, maybe there's like product lead, then and 4 PMs report to this person or something like that. When the headcount goes bigger, this is probably when the head of product appears. The bigger the organization, the most probable that they have multiple head of roles. They also might have more layers. So then it goes like head of product, probably director, or maybe VP. and then they report to CPO.
Yeah. When I look
I
at,
hope they answered.
Yeah, when I was looking around, I know I was definitely like the first round of one of them, but I see a lot of organizations like Sky TV and, you know, again, that size of a company doing interim, you know, offering interim HOPs because somebody may be on maternity leave or leave of absence or whatever the case may be. So that's why I was just curious is again, it's
please talk to me when you find a position. I have not had a referral from you yet, so let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. What was I gonna say? Again, like you know, how'd you find your way into this to begin with, like from product management? Because obviously you have a PhD, your background, you know, widely different from what you're doing today.
Right. So, well, as many people, I ended up with product management kind of unexpectedly. I don't think people of our generation ever really studied something that would give them a product management as a title or as a degree.
True.
We didn't even know that this existed when we did our university. So the same for me. I was very good at school. And I thought if I'm good at studying, probably I should do some science. And I kind of liked biology. So I went to study biology. It was fun. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be a researcher. And I went on to do a PhD. And maybe a year in, I realized this is not as fun as I imagined. It's actually, can be pretty boring, not to say anything bad about researchers. I think it's just a very particular kind of job where you need to have certain personality characteristics. You need to be very calm and persevere and really be able to focus. I found out that I'm not very good at these things. So I struggled to be a very good researcher. I also did not really enjoy. So I thought, okay, after my PhD, I still probably finish it, but after that, definitely I'm not going to stay. So I started thinking what I will do. And what helped me is that I started doing some other stuff outside of my work. I was organizing science communication events because I genuinely still cared about science and communicating this to the public. I started doing some consulting for careers, about careers in science for students. And through these different activities, I started to realize what else exists outside of being a researcher, like what kind of stuff I can do and what people maybe are even willing to pay me for. I got very interested in teamwork. So how do you work with a team to make something happen? Marketing and sales, because I was selling my online course. And this all eventually was useful for me when I became product manager. So after the PhD, I had a few other jobs which slowly drifted away from science and research. First, I did some more administration, operational job at the Research Institute, and then sales of scientific equipment. And eventually, I found an internship in product management, and I thought it's a cool way to try it and see if it will be interesting. I had still a very vague idea what it was, but kind of sounded interesting. I heard from some people it might be something interesting because it combined all these different activities, like working with the team, thinking about the business side, like how do you market, how do you make sure that you make money with the product, but also understand the user perspective. So I tried and I figured it was really fun, a very diverse job. I'm never bored, but also I was not bad at this, which I think was also important because after not being successful as a researcher, I really wanted something where I feel I can do a good job. And it worked pretty well. And that's how I'm here now.
I find it very well. Again, I couldn't agree more because again, that's how I fell into it, and that's how I think most people. Some people again, younger generations. That's like they want to do it, right? They're focused on. I was at because I was at a meetup, a product meetup here in the UK, and it was like a mashup of product and startup folks, which was interesting because there was a bunch of product people, but then there was a bunch of people with startups like looking for funding or looking how to get funding and all this stuff. But I met a kid, who's just starting out as a junior PM, and it's like something that he's been wanting to do for the last like few years since coming out of uni, and I just think that's great. I fell into it myself by not knowing I was doing it. I didn't realize, like, at the start of my career, I was a product owner, and I was doing that for a few years. And then when I actually went into product, it was just about getting the proper training, to be a PO, with Agile and everything else, and also Scrum Master training, so I could understand again how to run the ceremonies and but I do also have kind of a selfish, thing to say about it is like I used to see the PMs coming back and forth from London to the US, and I thought it was a very glamorous role. And I was like, these are the people to decide what gets done. I was like, oh, I want to do that. Right. But slowly but surely, I the love for it these days is really about, again, that the value that you add, like the outcomes that you get from what you produce, and then the impact it ends up making. Right. Like there's a good book, Outcomes Over Output, which is, again, a really big hot topic, right, when it comes to product management. But he's got the story of the well, where it's like everybody in the village is going to the river to gather water. So at a well, the output is materials and everything else to be able to build the well. The outcome is building the well. The impact is a higher standard of living, right, for the villagers, and to be able to again test it out. You do various things, like you could run a pump, from the river to the center, with a with a pump and so things like that. So it's that's what I love most about today, right, is the impact that you get out of the stuff that you release.
I think you raised an interesting question of a new generation, like young people. Is it even is product management a job that someone should or can be doing right after the university or not? And I just had a very interesting conversation about this a week ago. And I was in Amsterdam, and we organized a product leadership kind of panel with some open discussion. And we had some disagreement in the group whether it's good or not, because some people said, yeah, it's quite cool to have young people in the group who are product managers, because they are so open-minded. They know the new technologies much better than we do. I mean, I don't agree with that. I think I'm still quite good, but there is a point that they also grew up with mobile in their hand, and I don't know, AI. Maybe they were interested for a couple of years already. That's on one hand, that's maybe true. So they're a bit more creative and open to new stuff. At the same time, I do feel that as a product manager, you also need to be a bit grounded and have some work experience and have some experience in the business world to know that it's not just your great ideas that go into what we are building, but also some understanding of how the company works and why you have these different stakeholders, and understand also a bit of work ethic and the culture, and how to talk to people in a way that they would talk to you. So I'm not very convinced that it's great. I think it can be just a few years after the university, so maybe 2-3 years after that, but just fresh out of the uni feels very young to me, or very inexperienced to me. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, no, when I actually went for my first actual role as a technical product manager, I was almost 30. So, and I'd been in business in the corporate environment for the last 4 to 5 years. So for me, I would never ever want to. I don't regret. I was going for professional and further into leadership and professional services, but because I was also doing kind of a product role, and the part of professional services that I was managing didn't have a product manager to it. It was an easy segue for me. But if I didn't have all that previous experience, I would have been flying blind. I would have, again, I'm glad that I kind of restarted my career, right, to get, that experience. Cause so again, right out of uni, it's, that's a tough one. I mean, I don't think I would hire even an associate PM directly out of university. We do have, so I just started at this company called Global Relay, and we do have a graduate program. And to be fair, that's actually working out great. We have one woman who's joining, she's done, she spent some time in marketing, spent some time in sales, things like that. So now she's in product, and she's part of our business unit and our product offering. And she's really, enthusiastic, on board. She gets it, wants to learn more. So she's very eager, empathetic. So I guess, it boils down to the traits of somebody, and having, I think, a good mentor and line manager, right? And those can be separate, but that whole career development piece to really hone in and give them. So for me, it's really about, for her, helping her, get experience in the various forms of product management, right? So the business side of things, UX, technology, and understanding, again, where she wants to be in her career in the future, making sure that she has those tools, she has the right tools, right, to be able to, again, elevate herself in her career. So, I mean, that's why I like being a line manager, product managers, because I like to nurture and progress people's career to what we would consider the industry standard, right? So if somebody wanted to go out there from a PM and they want to go to a senior PM in another company, that they're prepared for that. So I guess I'm like indifferent. I'm indifferent about it. It was funny because as I was just talking and disagreeing with it, I then remembered we had a graduate program, and I think to myself, oh no, I gotta retract that statement, because I'm only 1 week in, but it seems like, it's working.
I guess I also not very strong opinion. I think it's definitely easier for people who have background in some business from before, especially if they work in some related field. For example, working in customer support, I think it's super great preparation for being a product manager, because you build so much empathy towards the users. And maybe in some cases, people have just some talent that is very suitable to the role. Still, and I'm agreeing here with you, the mentoring part is super important. So in bigger organizations, maybe where there are more people who are senior and there is time and space for them to mentor a junior person, it's going to work well. But if we think about the smaller organizations where they have maybe only 2-3 PMs and they're already overloaded, then having someone very junior join probably will be just very stressful. This person will not really get the mentoring help they needed to succeed. And will also not deliver great outcomes to the company.
That I agree with. The maturity, it does depend on the maturity of the company. And again, even whatever department it might be, well, not department, but product offering or suite or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you may, again, find yourself in the position to hire somebody else. But that goes, then there's a whole argument of, do you hire internally if somebody wants that position, or do you hire outside where somebody has that 3 to 5 year experience? So like, that's a whole nother argument that, again, I've been a part of, because that's me, right? Like I got hired internally and kind of worked my way up, right? And it's not easy, and it still, isn't easy. It's still, you're constantly learning, especially when you get thrown into a new environment and it works differently than what you're used to, or you're the top person, right? And then you go back down to middle management. And so then it's like, now you gotta manage upwards and downwards. And so, I guess I've been in a position where it's like, do I hire associate PM from the inside? No, I'm going to go out and hire somebody that, again, has a few years experience or has been working as a developer, data scientist, whoever, that kind of has, again, that love for product and wants to do it. And it's not an easy hiring process. Like, I don't think I've ever hired a PM. I don't think I've ever hired PMs like that I didn't go through a grueling, like maybe 1 or 2 month search to find the right person.
Yeah, that's why also our service exists, because it takes time to find the right person. And it can be a break of 2, 3 and more months between the PM position being opened and then someone coming in to fill it.
Yeah, and I remember one time I was hiring an associate PM, and out of the whole pool of the United Kingdom, I had one candidate in Germany and one candidate in Hong Kong. I had to decide between both. Yeah, but out of everybody, they were just the most eager to learn. Really kind of grounded. Like you said, like grounded. Just was really excited about the industry and everything. So. Kind of going back to what you were saying before about, particulars, when people don't want to hire in because, they don't know, they don't know fintech, or they haven't been as part of, fintech or ad tech or whatever, or you don't have this thing ticked off, or you don't have a bachelor's degree or something. that stuff I just don't agree with. I get that there are some maybe more regulated, like heavily regulated industries where they do need somebody that's a little bit more knowledgeable. But I think product people, again, are a little bit more of a fine wine, I guess you could say, where they can pretty much do anything when it comes down to industry.
I agree. Yeah. And we also, definitely we feel it very strongly with product people because we don't have any specialization. Now I say
Right.
product people, meaning our company. We don't have any specialization. So we work with different industries, and it spans from e-commerce to mobility, micromobility, including fitness and wellness, to medtech, where also there are a lot of regulations, to fintech, to sustainability. So we work with very different sectors, also many B2B sectors that are less obvious but are important, like logistics and supply chain and so on. And we see that a good product manager can bring value even if they don't know the industry very well. First of all, because they are approaching the problems with the right mindset, with the product mindset, and they're able to ask the right questions. And then given that they have the experts in the industry in the company, then they can also make good decisions by asking the right questions. And second, because as a product manager, I think you also learn how to figure out things quickly, because you never have enough information. You never know everything. Even if you stay in some industry for a while, then things will change. Like new technologies appear.
Yeah.
Let's think like about now, AI, everyone's talking about this, right? And one of the questions for everyone in product is, what does it mean for us? And it's not like many product managers in whatever industry were really experts in this. So they have to figure it out quite quickly now, understand what are applications and use cases, how do we not stay behind, but also not overinvest into the hype, because maybe for some products, it makes no sense. Like there will not be a benefit, and trying to force the AI features into the product is not going to bring anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, also the importance of, again, because that was a big theme at Prog Camp, wasn't it? About, is ChatGPT going to take over my job? People are actually really fearful of that. To me, it's a great assistant when it comes down to it. I love using it, especially having the context. I can use it to be able to help assist me, right? When it comes to, having to write a business case or even having to write user stories. I think it's quite well. I mean, you got to obviously tweak them a little bit, but it's just things like that are helpful. Like I said, it's a great assistant. The weird thing about all of this is, again, having somebody with that experience as a product person is extremely important when you're, again, the different stakeholders, where it's development, C-suite, whatever. It's such a different conversation. I talk to a lot of sales and customer success folks when they're a little bit apprehensive with product people talking to customers. I have to kind of break it down as to, it's a very different conversation than when you have with them. Your relationship with the customer, whether it's sales, customer success, support, is very different from how I interact with that customer, what I ask them, what I'm looking for, how we move things forward, all that. And that's, I think that is like a honed art, and especially with development, somebody arguing, I don't want to say arguing, but again, being on the side of the user, as a lot of engineering led organizations, they go down that route of, again, this option, the customer wants this option, but they're probably going to want this option as well, and this option, right? And then that's when the output gets so stretched, and there's nothing gets delivered because it's like, oh no, we have to have the Cadillac when the customer just wants a Honda Civic. And being, recently I was in a session a while back where it was, I shouldn't say recently, a while back, where, it was a conversation about the user stories in general, right? And specifically, they wanted it tailored to the exact role that this person would take in the product, right? So, a security manager role or this or that. But I had to kind of talk to them. It's like, but not everybody who's going to be using this feature or what this user story is about is this security manager, right? And I wouldn't even agree that we shouldn't even have that security manager role because, it's very niche. So, it's things like that, having somebody in place, whether it's leadership or middle or junior, somebody having that experience and being able to, kind of argue that point with data to back it is extremely important.
I agree. Yeah.
And that's why I feel, that exists. I mean, Neil McElroy, who kind of, again, in one way or another in the 30s, kind of started product management, he was looking out for brand men, right? To be able to go out and figure out what the customers wanted, because he felt that it wasn't being collectively distributed properly, or the feedback or whatever, that people just didn't understand who they were selling to at Procter Gamble. And he went on to influence David Packard and Bill Hewitt, or is it Bill Hewitt and David Packard? I can't remember, but it's just interesting to me. So yeah, I just think it's an interesting art.
Yeah.
Product leadership wise, what kind of, for people, because we did spend a bit of time during that trek when we were at Product Camp, talking with, I forget his name. I don't know if you remember, but he was the one who did the talk track on going from senior PM to director. What kind of advice or experience would you offer, given that being a VP of product and doing the interim roles that you do, like, how do you get there, and what are the things that you really need to pay attention to most, right? From an emotional intelligence standpoint, and also just, again, experience, like what would you say to folks that are trying to climb up that ladder, if they are interested in either managing people or just being in a senior position as an individual contributor, like what do they need to expect?
Right. So I think there's quite a lot of topics inside of this area, right? One is what you just said. Is it like people management position, or is it individual contributor? I'm generally very much in favor of the dual track, and happy that many companies start to offer this, that you don't have to become people manager by becoming more senior,
right,
or seniority is not equaling people management. I think it's great because there are people, and always will be people, who are very good at what they do as experts, but they're not so much into spending a lot of time with other people, being their managers and mentoring them and so on. And I think it's great to have this individual contributor track. This is something maybe to also start thinking relatively early on, and think about what are the options in the company you currently are at. Do they offer what you're interested in? If they don't, then think where you will be moving in some future. And
right,
for individual contributor, then you need to have experience in working more complex, bigger scope, bigger ambiguity topics in product to prove your mastery. And if you want to do people management, then you should start building up this experience of mentoring people, coaching people, even before you have officially any reports, because then you want to make your promotion case, right? Or you want to, when you apply to the position, prove that you're able to do this. And I think there are many opportunities to do this. You can do some informal mentoring, maybe of some people internally. You can find some mentoring platforms. There are now many mentoring platforms, and some of them are specialized in product management and offer your mentoring advice to junior people who want to start. And through this, also learn, what are your strong sides when it comes to mentoring and coaching people, where areas that you are not feeling so confident in, and then maybe you can learn more about this. And I had another thought in this direction. Let me think what I was. Go blank.
I know, but again, it's so no, that's great, because I was going to ask you specifically, like, do you have any advice, especially for people that can be a little bit apprehensive, right, on approaching folks to be like, hey, like, can I mentor you? So how would you start by going about that? Because that also, and I get it, people come to the podcast like this and try to find talk tracks and everything else, right, to understand again how do I do that, because I'm the same way. When it's like, how do I get managerial experience? Like, how do I become a manager if I've never managed people, right?
So I remembered also what I want to say. One thing I think is very important is that to be a good manager, I think you need to be a good expert still. Maybe you don't have to reach like the incredible level as individual contributor, senior person, like let's say call him principal PM.
Sure.
But you still need to have decent experience as a product manager, individual contributor, because you need to understand what the people who you are mentoring or managing are doing, and you need to have empathy for that. So I know sometimes people come to this job and like after let's say half a year, I feel like I figured out everything. Now I can just teach other people how to do it. Quite sure this is too early. Like they just did not experience enough. And it's a lot about collecting experience and being in different situations and facing some very difficult situations as well. Also making some mistakes on your own, seeing how other people do mistakes and know how to deal with them, because this is a difficult part. So I think it's important not to try to skip steps, but still stay for some time and be confident that you know how to figure out many difficult situations. And now to your question, how to get this experience. I think it's relatively easy to start nowadays. There are many online platforms where you can register as a mentor. Say, I am a mentor. I want to mentor people. This is my availability. This is the topics that I am happy to talk about.
Right.
And then people can book calls with you. And I had a good experience myself with a platform called Mentoring Club. It's the one I got to know, I think, the first because it's from here, from Germany, but it works worldwide. You can register there. There are some other platforms as well. So I think this is easy. Again, you don't have to chase people to ask them, can I mentor you? But you're just offering it and people might reach out. I also saw people putting this on their LinkedIn profile, right? And saying, I am open to mentoring junior people. You can reach out to me in this way. I'm happy to help you with any kind of topics. I think this also works. And then in your company, so if you have some colleagues who are more junior, I think you can approach them and just offer your time and say, hey, I have some time free on my hands. I thought maybe this would be helpful for you. I know you're just starting in this. Happy to spend time with you and give any advice that you want. When I was junior, I would definitely welcome it if someone came to me with this offer.
Yeah, if somebody, I mean, funny enough, yeah, you know, outside of maybe like one, you know, I've always found it, somehow I have fallen into having a line manager that ends up being a really good mentor. But again, I wouldn't want to work for anybody that I guess didn't see them as a mentor, right? That they have something that I want rather than the, you know, vice versa. And, so, you know, for me, again, it's just, yeah, like, and it doesn't matter what the role is. You know, it's a lot of things. Like, you know, for years, you know, I'm a very passionate person, right? But I got to kind of rein that in because, again, I can get, you know, it can seem overly aggressive, you know, and so, you know, there's a lot of things that I learned throughout my career that's like, hey, Michael, you gotta remember, like, you know, if somebody asks you a question, you say, yeah, we can do that. You don't have to say, yeah, we can do that. And, you know, and things like that. So, you know, it's, I actually may take a look at those platforms myself. It's just because I mean, I love to give back anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also find mentors for yourself because there are people who are very senior. And I think it's also cool to talk to them and ask them. And when I get to talk to someone who is more senior, I think I always get something out of this conversation. And I just ask them, what are the things you wish you knew earlier? What is the advice that you would give me? I want to be where you are at. Right? I think something interesting I just thought about when you were explaining about that you like to work for people who you see as mentors. I think some people might not be your mentors, but be a role model, which is also pretty good. And maybe it's good to distinguish them. Sometimes it might be that your manager is not very good people manager, but they might be very good expert. then also be proactive in how you manage this relationship, like learn from them what are they able to give you. And if you're missing maybe some more coaching style approach or someone who would be a bit more personable, maybe then you look for another mentor either internally at the company, because there's maybe another senior colleague who's not directly connected to you hierarchically, but you trust them and you see they really care about people. Or also look for some external platforms where you can find a coach / mentor to help you with some other things.
Right. No, 100%. I mean, yeah, that's a very good distinction. I didn't really even think about that. Yeah. So I was gonna say, we already talked about pretty much that shtick when it came down to advice. Do you see any big shifts these days with everything that's going on in product leadership? Like, do you see, more people? It's like the joke is like everybody now has a book and opinion, and here I am with a podcast. So, but do you think it's getting? I don't want to say convoluted, but now all the different types of product schools and stuff are coming up, and they're just popping up all over the place. And now the conventions and summits and conferences are popping up all over the place, and some are really overpriced, and some are just trying to get off the ground. Like, how do you feel about? Again, it's great to have this whole new culture, of it. Yeah, but like when does it become a little bit too convoluted?
I'm a very pragmatic person in general, so I don't mind that something is becoming an industry, and I think this is what's happening.
Right.
So it started more as like a movement, new ideas, was something very fresh, right? And then this felt like a completely new thing. Now product management is a not new thing. It's more of becoming a standard of the industry. People start recognizing this is a good approach. This is how you should work if you want to create products that would make money for the business and so on. And it's becoming an industry with some more formal things around it, right? Formal education, some regular events where people meet, some people who establish themselves as experts, meaning they are people who know a bit more than the average person in this topic. Someone becomes a famous speaker. I guess it's just all natural and fine. Interesting to see if something else will come out after some time, that maybe people figure out there is a bit of something we were missing and there will be new thing. Maybe not, but also maybe not very soon, because I think product management, yes, is a new thing in maybe last 50 years or so, and not that like in still establishing itself. Maybe nothing new comes in the next 50 years as well. So I don't mind. I think it's good that it's a good practice. So it's good that people start recognizing it more. I guess something similar was years ago when marketing and advertising started to appear, right? Until some point, it was very sparse. People didn't really think about how to market a lot. Then the media appeared, like television appeared, newspapers, and people were, okay, now we can use that. And they were working on creating better ways. And at this point, like, we cannot imagine a life without advertising. It's always everywhere. We used to it. We also see that some parts are annoying, other parts are also good, because this is how we learn about new products and find something that suits us. But it became an industry that is not a revolution anymore, but I think it was a revolution at some point. Product management and digital products and product management for digital products kind of the same.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it. Again, I've worked with quite a few kind of prod camps at this point, right? And so, I'd like to continue to do that, because I think it one is awesome just to, see these things flourish, but also to kind of get involved and share your experience now that there's all these different outlets. And I do like that they also give other, they go out and they find folks, they're kind of like-minded with their theme, and they say, hey, do you want to do this or you do that? Like, I thought Prod Camp EU was like, it was a great one, even though it was on a, remote island in Cyprus, it was still well attended. And I thought the quality of speakers was great. Even the folks like yourself who did lightning talks, I thought they were straight to the point and really beneficial. And
Mm.
It's, because I was at the Proc-led Summit, last year, chairing it in the Netherlands,
Mm.
and it was great. It was a great time. It was, again, right after COVID, so I think people were kind of like just jumping back into it. So, in which
Mm-hmm.
even some people said on stage, they're like, I haven't really done this in a long time. Bear with me,
Yeah.
and then, but sometimes, the quality of those things, and I'm trying to write a paper on it right now about it, but the quality, I think, sometimes gets, it does get muddied. I don't think the quality at some of these events sometimes is great. But I guess that comes down to who's vetting the speakers. I'm not saying I'm worth
Yeah.
my weight in gold, but it's again, if you're paying a decent price plus travel to join some of these conferences, right? The quality of speakers better be there, because otherwise somebody
Mm.
isn't going to return next year.
Sure. I mean, again, me being pragmatic, I would say when you are the one to organize something, then you should definitely try to do good, because there are people who can understand quality and will also tell you if what you did was not very good quality. If you want people to come back, as you said, to you, or respect you and see you as someone who understands, then you should do it well. When you're an attendee and you're looking to attend something, then also you try to do some of your wet vetting. Look who are the speakers. Are they coming from reputable companies? What has been their track so far? Also, how does it really? I would say for speakers, I would also look how does the lineup of speakers correspond to what you're interested to learn about. Because
Right.
let's say you work at a startup, if you go at a conference where people, like only people from big corporate will speak, like this product-led alliance in Amsterdam, right? They of course have a lot of people from Booking, because this is what in Amsterdam, and then
Right.
they have, I don't know, people from Miro and something else. So, but if these are kind of companies that are very different from the kind of company you work at, you should be prepared that maybe many things they talk about are not really applicable to you. Maybe you're still interested. Maybe you want to work in such a company next, or you're curious to learn, but might not be very applicable right now, not very hands-on. And the other way around, there are conferences that are more focused on the entrepreneurship, startups, what like 0 to 1 products. And if you go from Booking to this conference, probably you might be okay. This is a very different scale. What do I learn here? But then, yeah, you as an attendee, you should think, check what's in the program and does it fit what you want to learn about and with whom you want to network.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. Again, it's really about the content. And so, I mean, I've done it. I've turned up to something. I've turned up to one of these, before, and it's like, right over my head. Not right over my head, like I don't understand where they're coming from, but I'm like, yeah, I can't really do that, right? Or like that's not. I don't really have the option to do that. So maybe when I'm at another company where that's like, applicable, it would make sense. But I guess that is a very good point. And again, it's down to the individual. And that was going to be my point in the paper I'm writing is, again, it's down to the individual and the content and what you have available to you. So, there's quite a few in London. There's regular meetups. The EU in general has a bunch, right? I think there's one coming up. It's Proctart. I think it's in your country. I think it's in Germany, right? Proctart is in Germany, I think.
Product art.
Yeah, I think it's
haven't heard about it.
Hamburg's in Germany, isn't it?
Yeah, product at heart. Okay, I know what. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
I think so. So I think that's
Exactly.
one of the
Yeah,
next ones that's coming up. Yeah, so there's in the US is like a whole different animal, right? So they tend to be the US ones tend to be more on the expensive side. Yeah,
they have different salaries and prices for everything, so it makes sense.
that is
I
true.
think also I don't want to shame people who find themselves on some like low quality stuff, because this definitely your ability to judge how good it's gonna be will grow with your experience. So if you're thinking right now, I want to do product management, I'm very new to this, so I have no idea, then attend something. Probably there will be still something good that you learn, you understand a bit more, and with the few iterations, you start being more versed, and then you can judge good from the bad. But yeah, it's not always easy. I would only be cautious with like paying a lot of money. So if you want to do all the like training education, then I would probably be a bit cautious. I generally, well, when junior people or people who want to transition into product ask me how they do this, should they do whatever certification, class, and so on, I usually say, honestly, that's not my recommendation. My recommendation would be try to get some practical experience, find an internship, develop your own product as a side project, work with someone in a team together, try to like pay for some relatively cheap online courses to get the general gist, and then try to apply it on the practice. Right. Maybe after this, after trying something in practice, you realize these are some areas that I really need more training. Maybe like data analytics, I have to learn more because I don't know how to do this, and this is very specialized skill. Maybe I tried my own project, something worked, something didn't, and now I know there are specific areas where I would really like to get more training. Then I think this training will be much better used. So the money invested would be invested better. Going as the very fresh person, very naive to the trainings, I think creates very little impact.
Yeah, I mean, I did early on in my career pragmatic marketing. So pragmatic marketing does a really good job if you want to get, the foundation, product management foundations. Even one of their courses is called Foundations. But that to me, I remember my boss said at the time, he was like, yeah, this wouldn't be beneficial for me at all. It would be a refresher, if anything. But for you, it would be really good if you, took these 3 courses, right? And again, from a career development perspective, a lot of companies will, pay for it, hopefully, because again, it's extremely important. You're not always going to get, that kind of career development, from a training perspective, like in your company, right? Like that people who do it best,
if
offer.
a company pays for it, I think it's a different story, right? Because I just know people who are out of the job and they think that paying for like a few K for a course will really increase their chances. And unfortunately, it will not, probably, because they will still have only the stories of what they learned or like they were taught, but not practical stories. And the interviewer is looking for practical stories. And in this case, I would rather go to do like 3 months unpaid internship than pay a few K for non-practical course.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny thinking about that. That's, again, I agree, because when it comes to education, there are a lot of certifications that are out there these days, and it's like, strategic product management, product strategy, things like that. And again, it's like, it's a course, right? Now you got to put it into practice. So you can't just expect a job because you got some certification in product strategy, not having any experience in product strategy or minimal, right? Especially when you're sometimes being, made responsible for like hundreds of millions of dollars potentially, in revenue as part of your product offering. And so, yeah. And then the side note that kind of segue into is, again, a lot of companies that provide their own certifications, right, as part of, and it could be a product, like, it could be a product, but they fall short because, again, it's like, oh, I'm certified in this. But again, what does that mean to the outside world? If you're certified as part of, a product or training or security or something as part of an organization, like how much weight does that hold? It's not like becoming a Microsoft MVP, right? If you're a Microsoft MVP, right, that's a little bit more of a, kind of gold badge, right, and crown that you can kind of wear around, and companies actively seek Microsoft MVPs, right? For various reasons. So it's like something like that. It's a little bit more different, right, than having some kind of, security certification you get as part of a company. But yeah. Well, we are actually on the hour, and it is a Friday, and you and I are at the end of our days, and we should go off and enjoy the weekend. Viktoria.
Sounds good.
Thanks, I can't thank you enough for joining the podcast. It's really good to see you again, and I hope to have you back on soon.
That would be nice. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Okay, everybody. That is the end of the podcast. I hope you got some great insights. it was really great to hear about Victoria's experience coming up, in product management, her experience with product people, what product people's offers. So definitely check out that website, which I believe is productpeople.com. And you can check out her LinkedIn as well to get that information. And if the URL is wrong that I just gave, I will be sure to leave it in the YouTube links. But again, thank you so much for joining the Product Dude. Have a great weekend and a great Friday. We'll see you next time.